Okay, a company called IBM, or International Business Machines. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't know much about the company. And I didn't know much about computers either. But when I met the people and the projects that were involved with IBM, I was so excited that I had to tell my friends and my family about it. But I realized, but they didn't understand where all this excitement was coming from. Because when they thought of IBM, they thought of nerdy IT guys punching out ones and zeros. And I realized that there was a huge disconnect between the reality of IBM and the reputation it was giving off. Interestingly enough, I read a quote by one of IBM's former and most influential CEOs, Thomas Watson Jr., and he said that good design is good business. Good design is good business. And this really struck me. And in fact, it challenged me to design good architecture for IBM, which would in turn bring about good business in the years to come. And so today, I present to all of you my thesis, the IBM campus. Now, my design philosophy is that same quote, good design is good business. My design objectives are to design an IBM Philippines headquarters that would rebrand the company for the current and future generations, to design a work environment that would foster creative collaboration, and to design a work environment that would allow for work-life integration. My design considerations are functional zoning, to allow again for work-life integration, efficient circulation, maximizing the vistas because it's a nice site, so I want to maximize the views, and of course building character. This is so important because the design of the building has to be in line with the company's identity and reputation and values. So the next question is, how do you answer these objectives and considerations? Well, IBM's current CEO, Virginia Romney, said that every generation of IBMers has the opportunity and the responsibility to invent a new IBM. The key word here is generation. Currently in the workforce, there are 3 generations. You have the baby boomers, Gen X, and Gen Y. Currently, the corporate world is making a huge initiative to better accommodate Gen Y for the reason that it is predicted that within the next 10 years, half of the world's workforce will be coming from this group of people. So in order to better understand the needs and expectations of this generation, I created a focus group of 48 Gen Y IBMers. And from our discussions, I've found that IBM didn't need another cookie-cutter corporate office. Rather, what they needed was a campus, a place for casual interaction, spontaneous meetings, a place that would allow for cross-pollination of ideas from the different departments and different positions. And so, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the design, we have to answer 3 critical questions. First, what is it? Second, where is it? And third, how are we going to design it? Now, the first question is, what is it? The IBM campus would function as the IBM Philippines headquarters. It would replace their current headquarters, IBM Plaza. It would be comprised of the IBM Tower, which would house a majority of the IBM offices in the campus, and it would have majority of leasable spaces, so it's over here. Then you would have the IBM Training Center, which is over here. It would have the training facilities for IBMers, partners, and clients. And then you have recreational facilities. So the recreational facilities are like the green part here, a lot of greenery in the plazas. And this is, again, really important for work-life integration. And then lastly, you have the Think Center over here. Now this would showcase IBM's rich history and current projects, allowing the company to be more mainstream to the current population. And so the next question is, where is it? The IBM campus would be located in Philinvest, Alabang, for the reason that it is close to both Makati, Taguig, Santa Rosa, and Cavite. It's a booming development in the south, and it has high demand for office space. So currently, majority of IBM's offices are in the north. They don't have that many establishments in the south. So now I picked block 14 over here, which is next to the SLEX, for the reason that it acts as a marketing strategy, it can be viewed, the architecture can be viewed from the SLEX and also here in the Alabang area, the SLEX area. So the next question, the last question, is how are we going to design it? Well, with the different typologies in the campus, it was imperative that we have a concept, solid concept, that would unite all the different typologies so that it will all complement each other. So the design concept is corporate romanticism. Now this isn't about hooking up or like your office crush or anything. Romanticism here is talking about the romantic movement that began in the late 18th century. It is characterized by free thinking, self-expression, and strong emotion. Now, corporate romanticism is about allowing these traits to permeate corporate culture to create an environment that would allow the members of an organization to express themselves as individuals without losing sight of the corporation's identity. So let's move on to our first building, the IBM Tower. Now the IBM Tower is comprised of 50 floors, but before we get into that, let's study the Gen Y workforce. As I mentioned earlier, there are 3 generations in the workforce, Gen Y being a big influence as to how the office scene will play out in the coming years. So one of the biggest challenges of dealing with Gen Y is actually getting them to stay. Unlike our parents, the baby boomers, who on average would stay with the company for 7 years, Gen Y is only predicted to stay with their own company for 2 years. Gen Y IBMers are no different. When asked how long they saw themselves with IBM, 66% of the focus group said 1 to 3 years. Now, IBM spends millions annually on training and developing these employees. To have them leave after 3 years is quite distressing. And so the biggest question is, 66% are willing to stay 1 to 3 years. And the biggest question is, how would you get them to stay? Now, sociologists have found that Gen Y doesn't actually stay in jobs for stability or to get rich. Gen Y actually go to jobs for happiness and fulfillment. Another study showed that 88% of Gen Y would stay with a company longer if it had a positive culture. So the next question is, how does architecture develop this positive culture? Well, you do it through pragmatic zoning, which is basically a fancy way of saying all the right spaces in all the right places. So if you look at this elevation here, I decided not to zone it as a typical office building. As you know that most office buildings, they have office space on top, retail space and below. What I decided to do instead was to divide it like a neighborhood. And so I divided it into vertical enclaves with community floors, that's the blue one, the community floors in between. Now these community floors would have recreational space, lounging areas, and retail space like food stalls. And this would allow them to act more as a neighborhood rather than an office. Now, another important thing here for any high-rise project is the building efficiency, the ratio between leasable space and core. This building has a 77% building efficiency, and so I was able to do that by creating transfer elevators. The transfer elevators would appear in the community floor so that it would allow more traffic to go there. So you would take the ground floor, then you transfer to the community floors, and then onto your respective floors. Now, another important thing was to integrate IBM technology with the building design. So one of the things, how I did that was that I allowed all the utilities and the systems in the building to be integrated with IBM Tririgo, which is a software program that they've developed to make the buildings work more efficiently. So the IBM Tririgo can actually predict when your systems, like your elevator, your water, your lighting, when they can be cut down, how they can be cut down. And so the next one is structural. Then you have the pedestrian ramp, which is really important. The pedestrian ramp was integrated into the plaza because there was a lot of retail spaces that would move up. So the pedestrian ramp was really important here because it allowed the IBMers and the tenants to wander and to have like the 10-minute walk break. So here's a perspective of that. Now the first enclave would be dedicated to IBM. You have the second floor for building administration and HR, and the third to sixth floor are for free seating office spaces because they don't have assigned office space. This is one of the meeting rooms. When sociologists have found that Gen Y tend to associate themselves better with companies that project themselves as movements rather than corporations. So here you have the office room, which is not just like your normal conference room. It's a living room setup, and it also showcases different accomplishments by IBM. So you have like the New York skyline in the background as like the design, so that they know the presence of IBM in New York. Another example is the Wimbledon conference room to show it's a more playful conference room, the ping pong table that doubles as a conference room. It's to show IBM's partnership with Wimbledon. You then have IBM's community floor is the 7th floor. You have the 50th floor, which is an executive floor for meetings, both for IBM and for other companies. Oops. And then this is actually the seating area, which you can see over here. It's a seating area. These furnitures are movable, so it's very dynamic, very interactive. It also shows IBM's mantras. Like I said, philosophy and values are very important to Gen Y. Now, the rest of the floors of the tower will be dedicated for BPO spaces. It is predicted that within this year, 80 to 90% of our office space availability would go to BPO companies. And so these are different typical layouts. The next typology is the training center. IBM requires all their employees to have at least 40 hours of training each year, and so this building is very important. It's also for their partners and their clients. Here you have second skin, which this looks kind of like gibberish, but that's actually poetry in the form of Java. So it shows that it's trying to associate with the IT people, but it's also very accommodating to non-IT people. It's also orange because it's the orange. If you look at the color wheel, is the contrast of blue. So this was an attempt to rebrand the company as well for the younger generations without using IBM blue, which is very important to the company. So if you look at the sections here, you have sports on the bottom for IBMers, you have the lobby, the recruitment floor, classrooms in the 4th and 5th, research and development are in the 3rd floor, a library, a community floor, and the tech support. So here's the ground floor. As you can see, the pedestrian ramp next to that. Second floor is for recruitment. They have 4 stages: admissions, individual interview, group interview, and competency test. The 3rd floor is for R&D. So a lot of these rooms have high security passes. You need to badge in to be able to get in. They also have communal seating, lounging areas though. The 4th floor is the IBM's classroom floors for the classrooms. And I went to the current training facility and I realized that once you go out of the classroom, there's no space for the students and the employees to sort of gather together. And that's a big problem because a lot of the time, right after you learn something, to be given the opportunity to talk about it with your peers allows you to better understand the lesson. So I made sure that within the 4th floor, there was a lot of lounging areas where people could gather and discuss the lessons before or after. Also, there's a lot of seating area here. IBM has a bench policy, so basically what that means is if you don't have a project or bench and you're required to train and go to work, and so this area is for them. This also has a slide which connects to the 5th floor. This is the 5th floor. Again, classrooms, individual working stations, group working stations, lounging, the cubicles. And this is the next one. Gen Y is very playful, if you can notice. So again, one of IBM's mantras are here, the be essential. It's plastered everywhere in their office now. So this is another creative way of putting it out there. There's a ball in there. It's really fun. The 6th floor is the library. I realized that one of the IBMers that I met actually really loved reading, but I realized not everyone loves reading. So I decided instead of creating a row of books, why not create a ramp of books? So this is actually a ramp with books underneath and seating areas within. So this is the mezzanine floor, and this is the perspective. You can go up and just, this is a reading pod also, so the books are within the ramp. The seventh floor is IBM's community floor, which connects to the IBM tower. When I was working there, I met a business analyst, and she just gave birth, and she said, if you ever design an office, make sure that there's a nursery. And so here's the nursery for her, and with a playground. I find that IBMers nowadays, like Gen X and Gen Y, are very connected to the family. So right now it's a working space, but as Gen Y continues to grow up and they have their own kids, this would sort of transform to a more family-oriented place. We also have the dorms here because they really work late. I think they finish at about 6 a.m. This is the server room. This is the roof deck. So it's like a mountain. It's called Watson Park, after Thomas Watson Jr. You have the sports hall, and the sports hall has the gym, basketball. They have sports fest, they're really into that. Fitness rooms, and boxing. So all the different activities here were based on the activities that IBMers like to do, again from the focus group. And so the next typology is the Think Center. This is another quote. Before we start, let's read another quote by Thomas Watson Jr. He said, "We acknowledge our obligation as a business institution to help improve the quality of society." So you see here, IBM is not just in the business of making money, but really improving society. They want to be the forefront of the companies that are working to make the world a better place. And so here, so the first question is, how do you design a Think Center? Well, there are three criteria. First, it needs to be flexible. And when you think of flexibility, I find that the most flexible space you can think of is a blank space. So that's how the Think Center was designed. The other one is facts. Sorry, that's supposed to be facts. Now, IBM has no shortage of information, being an IT company, but it's the challenge for them is how to project that information, that very technical information, into mainstream culture and making that relevant. And then the next one is fun. How is IBM going to make this place fun when it's all about computers? One of the main objectives of the Think Center was to teach people that IBM and IT, in fact, is not an isolated industry. Because being in the information age, IT and IBM actually touch all industries and all demographics. And so here you have the Think Center. This is the front and back elevation. It's just one level. The rest of it is underground. Over here you have, this is a water facade. So it would part if you touch it, so you can enter the museum, the Think Center, sorry. So this is the ground floor lobby. On first basement you have the exhibits. Third to sixth basement you have the holographic ride of IBM. So that's going to be pretty intense. So the ground floor, you enter here, you get your tickets. You then go down and proceed to the ride, which is in the third basement and fifth basement. And once you're done with the rides, you can go up to the second basement, which has the exhibits. So here you have film viewing. IBM has a lot of films, like Wild Ducks, 100 by 100, and so all of this could be showcased here. You view it on the screen, and I think a lot of museums right now, they inspire you, but they don't give you the opportunity to do something about that inspiration. The IBM Think Center would be different because in these discussion pods, people could enter, they could talk to an IBM, and they could discuss about what they learned. After that, you can go to the World Community Grid, which is a very key part of the museum. The World Community Grid also allows the visitors to be part of IBM's projects by integrating their devices, like their laptop, their phone, or their tablet, to the World Community Grid, which helps IBM analyze huge amounts of data from some of the world's most intensive research projects. So that would be the World Community Grid. And then you have classrooms over here for coding and different classes that IBM could teach. And then you have the play area over here. It's a space shuttle because they helped make the space shuttle land on the moon, which is, people don't really know that. And you have the souvenir shop over here, and then back out into the museum, back into the elevators and out the lobby. So that's my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.